Good afternoon and welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for the Swim Ontario Grant Writing webinar here today. And as per Dean's note in the chat, for all of you that are Star Wars fans, or those of you that even may not be Star Wars fans, may the 4th be with you. So we are hosting this grant writing webinar on the same day as May the 4th be with you, Star Wars Day. So my name is Christy Yaremczuk. I'm the Provincial and Performance Programs Coordinator at Swim Ontario. And I also write many of the Swim Ontario grant applications. And it is my great pleasure to be presenting here with you today with our Swim Ontario President, Anne Bell, who is also very well versed and has great experience and success in grant writing. While grant writing opportunities have existed long before the COVID pandemic, COVID has brought out some silver linings for organizations with regards to opportunities to apply for a wide variety of grants that did not necessarily exist prior to COVID and or have been adapted to meet the needs through the recovery process for COVID. So the purpose of this webinar here today is to make sure that you are aware of many of the different grant opportunities that are out there, as well as to share with you some fundamental tools and skills for grant writing success. Just a few housekeeping notes. Please mute and turn off your video when you're not speaking. From experience through webinars that we have hosted, we find that a much better quality for the webinar, and also we don't lag or get disconnected when videos are turned off. And if you can please mute, that would be great, unless you're speaking. Feel free to type your questions in the chat box and we'll try to answer them along the way, or either in the chat box, or we will unmute you and you can ask the question or have discussion as we go through the webinar. There will be a Q&A at the end, and questions can also be followed up via email. We are recording and we will post the webinar on the Swim Ontario website. So just looking to this slide here, I'm reminded, and when I'm writing a grant application, I always remember lessons or quotes that my mother actually taught me, and I'm sure many of your mothers taught you. Number one, do your homework. Extremely important to do your homework when you're looking at potentially writing a grant. Nothing in life is free, and you're going to learn a little bit more about that. We're going to have more discussion about that in the steps to grant writing when I pass it over to Anne. There are no shortcuts, and the early bird catches the worm. So when writing a grant, really all of these words of advice hold true. Any person or organization who has received a grant will tell you that being awarded a grant took time, research and preparation and commitment. But at the end of the day, it is well worth it, and you can have a great deal of success. And you can also find encouraging, engaging partners along the way when you understand the basics, when you do your homework and you're well prepared and work as a team. So next slide, please. Thank you. So here's our agenda for today. And if you look to the circle there with regards to the steps or the process for writing a grant, I'm going to be talking mostly about the pre-award, and Anne will be talking about writing and the post-award. So in the agenda, I will start off with some of the basics. What is a grant? Who awards grants? Who qualifies? And where to find grants to apply for. And then I will be passing it over to Anne, and she will go into some of the specifics of the stages of grant writing. So reading the grant, completing the application, submitting the application, receiving the grant, and reporting the outcomes. And then we will go into a Q&A after that. All right, next slide, please. So really basics here. What is a grant? It is a financial award. It's given to qualified recipients, and it's designated for a specific purpose. Can't stress this enough, and you'll see one message is clear, that you'll find that all funders, all grantors, always put very specific qualifications in their call out for grant applications. There are operating support or unrestricted funding for day-to-day opportunities for grant writing. There are grants that specify capital support for specific construction or infrastructure. And there is also what's called restricted program development funding grants, where the grantor could be private, could be public-private. They really specify directly what the funds must go to. So they're restricted funds, and they go specifically towards programming. One question, or in discussions with clubs and different individuals, is that there is this this assumption that part of the money has to be paid back. So grants differ from a loan in that the money does not have to be paid back, but there is a great deal of expectation and specific expectation outlined by the grantors as to how they want to see their return on investment once the grant is awarded. Next slide, please. So who awards grants? As I mentioned, there are private foundation grants, and they're funded by individuals, family, or community. Some of you may have been awarded these types of grants. A lot of times they're very specific in interest, and they're long-standing. Some of these private foundations have been around for 100 years, 50 years, 25 years within a community. Corporate grants are funded by for-profit businesses. They come specifically from resources within a company, donations from employees, company profits, or may be directed from a separate foundation within that corporation that's set up. And then, of course, there are government grants, and there are many different types of government grants, city, region, county, province, federal. They are from public taxpayer dollars, and they're designed to meet the needs of the community, locally, regionally, provincially, nationally, and they are there to address community social, economic, environmental, mental health matters, you name it. Again, important to note that government grants are all funded by taxpayers, you and I. Okay, next slide, please.
And just a reminder for folks to mute their phones or computers.
Thank you. So who qualifies for grants? You'll find when you look into and do research on call outs for grants and organizations, grantors usually, if everybody could mute, that would be great. Thank you. They place, there's common categories of organizations, groups, individuals that funders fund. So non-for-profits, religious organizations, individuals or individual groups, and tax-supported organizations, and public-private organizations. One common question that I get asked quite a bit is, can our organization fall into multiple categories? Absolutely, of course you can. What's really important is to understand what are the requirements from the actual funder. Okay, next slide, please. So how do you determine if you qualify, if your organization or you as an individual or a group within your organization qualifies? Cannot emphasize enough here, know who you are, what you stand for, and what your needs are. So the who, what, why, and when. It's also really important at this stage, if your organization, if you're considering applying for a grant, that it is a group of you within the organization. So it could be your board or a specific group within your club, within your organization, that comes together to consider the who, what, why, when. Because at the end of the day, it won't be one individual that is writing the grant. It will really be a team. And it's really important that there are a number of team players at the table when you're discussing and considering whether you will qualify. Next slide, please. So along with how do you determine if you qualify is knowing the funders. Again, I can't stress this enough. Grantors are clear as to who may apply for the funds they offer. As you consider applying for a specific grant, be sure to read its qualified applicant section first to determine if you or your group qualifies. The other thing that's very important to look at and consider, study the funder's website and grant application to find out if you meet the funding criteria. And also remember, and in your discussion with the team within your organization, when you're considering a grant, is yes, there are one-off grants. They come along, and you want to be ready. You've done your homework. You want to be ready if to take the opportunity to apply for the one-off grants. But at the same time, you look into it, and many of the grants that clubs, swim clubs, and organizations and groups within clubs have the opportunity to apply for are long-standing grants, are long-standing funders, many times right within the community. And you want to establish a relationship, a partnership with these funders and set a good reputation so that you can continue to go back, not necessarily to even apply for, it might be a one-off grant, but for grants in the future that organization, that private entity, and or government may be doing a call out for in the future. So you want to consider their funding interests. Do they align? Review past recipients. Grantors always put past recipients on their websites. They also make announcements about past recipients. They have press releases. They have celebrations around past recipients. So it's important to look at that. And also very important to consider your ability to comply and your budgeting capacity within your organization. Are you incorporated? What is your budget? Does it align with, there may be a $500,000 grant opportunity out there, but the funder may be looking for a organization that aligns from a budget perspective in line with a capacity within your organization, aligning with that grant opportunity. Key point here, and Anne will touch on this a little bit more, the status of your organization. If you're incorporated, if you have audited financial statements, that's great, that's one thing. If you don't, that's okay too. You may also consider, and it's important to have this discussion with your team, with your organization, with your board, with your club, considering partnering with another organization. There are many examples of where swim clubs get together to apply for grants, different sports get together to apply for opportunities within a community, and so on and so forth. So even though what's important to know is what the status of your organization is when it comes to the financials, and what the funder is looking for with that, and if there is an opportunity to consider partnering with another organization to ensure that the ability to comply is met. Okay, next slide, please. So how do I find grants to apply for? There are many, many, many grant opportunities out there. What we've done here today is try to outline some that we know are perhaps familiar with you, for your organization, for your club. but also right now highlight a number of organizations, government and or otherwise, that are offering, right now there seems to be a flurry of opportunities for organizations to apply for grant opportunities. So one I'm sure many of you are familiar with is the Ontario Trillium Foundation. The link, the OTF.ca website is their main website. And then I put in here links to their specific funds. The Ontario Trillium Foundation is very clear on their website with the grants that they are offering out to the community. They also are very clear on describing what type of grant it is, the deadlines, and also specific questions that your organization should ask ahead of time with your team before considering applying. What's really amazing about the Ontario Trillium Foundation website is they also lay out for you very specifically opportunities. They basically walk you through the process. So I've just included in here, for example, under the Community Building Fund, right now there is an operating stream grant available. It closes very soon. But what they have, what they've included right on the website is the actual walking you through the package. So review the Community Building Fund operating stream application process. It gives you the template right in the, and you can download that for your organization. It gives you that right on the application stream. Also, it encourages you, they encourage you to attend an information session, to book a 15-minute coaching call, and also to contact their team for immediate application support. So they give you many opportunities to provide support to you when you're writing the grant process. So they have Community Building Fund, a Resilient Communities Fund, which is another great opportunity specifically built in collaboration or partnership with the ministry in Ontario with the provincial government. The next intake is August 2021. And again, they put specific questions right there for you, right on the webpage when you click on it, to help you have that discussion with your organization. Do you really qualify? Should you take the time to apply for this Resilient Communities Fund? Next slide, please. So the Ontario Trillium Foundation also has a number of ongoing community investment funds and grants that are slightly modified or tweaked from time to time, but fall under these categories. So there's a seed grant, a grow grant, a capital grant, and a youth opportunities fund. My suggestion, and I encourage all of you, is to, if you sign on to the OTF.ca website, there's the opportunity for you to get notifications. And these are their foundational, if you will, grant. This Community Investments Fund is a foundational opportunities through these categories: seed grant, grow grant, capital grant, and then youth opportunities fund. And if you get their notifications, you will be then able to be updated regularly on when these applications open, when the portals open, and also be updated on criteria and what actually falls within those grant opportunities for you. Next slide, please. So along with the Ontario Trillium Foundation grants, there is the Ontario Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture, Inc. Very long title. This is the ministry in Ontario, a big umbrella, as you can see, heritage, sport, tourism, and culture, where there's many opportunities for local organizations, clubs to apply, along with the PSO, the Provincial Sport Organization, along with the MSO, so multi-sport organizations. What we wanted to make sure was very clear is in many situations, and including and through COVID, the ministry has made available or adapted or opened up opportunities for local organizations to apply. So sometimes the funding will flow specifically. It will be the PSO, so Swim Ontario would have to apply and then distribute the funds to the clubs or the members within their organization, and or an MSO or the multi-sport organization will apply, and they will be mandated to or expected to flow the funds through locally to the community. However, the ministry has opened up many more opportunities for the local organizations, clubs like yourselves, to apply. So it's really important for you to take, if you have not done so already, take the time to explore their site. I put the links there. The mtc.gov.on.ca is an overview of the site. The infogo.gov.on.ca, it gives more specifics around who within the ministry, under the minister, is required, or what staff members and contacts for those staff are linked to specific funds and opportunities. I will take the time right now to say, once you go through this site and look at it, there's quite a few questions that they've put on frequently asked questions, which is, I think, great, that all of you may have. But also what's important once you've gone through this is also to reach out to your local MPP, make the connection, make sure that they are aware, that you are aware as of an organization of all that the Ontario Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture has to offer. And if you have specific questions for your area, wherever you are, your region, your community, you want to make that connection also with your MPP. That's important, so that they're aware what you have potentially applied for or are looking to apply for, whether it be through the ministry site or through the Ontario Trillium Foundation site. Next slide, please.
Christy, there's a question. Are you aware of any swim clubs who have been successful through the Ontario Trillium Foundation? Does Swim Ontario have records of that?
So great question. So we have raised this through our consultant. The way that the post in Ontario Trillium site, there is a they do record all their recipients, and they do make announcements as well. And there's a record I'll send. I don't have the link in front of me of what it's called on the website, but I'll make sure that I get that sent out and posted. I am aware that the Mississauga Aquatic Club was a recipient last year. And so they were a recipient of the Resilient Communities Fund. As far as other clubs in the past, what I will do is send you the link, and it shows a whole history. They are required, like I said, in the case of Ontario Trillium Foundation, I think it's a requirement for them. They don't just do it out of the goodness of their heart. They are required to, by year and by grant, publish who are recipients. It's part of the reporting. It's part of the data reporting that they need to do. So I will get that link sent to you. Any other questions?
Nope, that's it for now.
So these are just a few of Ontario Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture These are just a few of the over and above Ontario Trillium Foundation, which the Minister MacLeod, has announced quite a bit through the pandemic for sport specifically. Funds, opportunity to apply for funds, a lot of it will flow through the Community Build Fund, which is through Ontario Trillium Foundation, so the applications, and also the Resilient Communities Fund. So organizations will apply through the Ontario Trillium Foundation. However, applying through the ministry, there are, and these are ongoing announcements that are being made weekly, Ontario Tourism Recovery Program, Reconnect Festival and Events Programs, Ontario Sport Hosting, it's called Game On, and then Celebrate Ontario. Regular announcements of how organizations can apply for funding through these programs are being made. So again, it's a really good idea for your organization to have somebody that is regularly looking at the ministry website and looking to see when these announcements are made. Through Swim Ontario, we try to provide updates as well, especially when it comes specifically to COVID. We've been trying to do that. At the end of the day, it's really also important for your club, for your organization to follow up, because there may be an opportunity there that will fit very well with your organization that might not fit with other clubs throughout Ontario. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so outside of the provincial government, there is also, of course, the federal government. The federal government, a lot of funds, oh wait, sorry, I'm not on that slide yet. Sorry. Okay, we're still on Government of Ontario. So yes, I've put here for Government of Ontario, why I put this app, the Transfer Payment Ontario app.grants.gov.on.ca. Once you apply, once your organization applies for a grant through the ministry, this is the portal. You will get a password. You will get an ID number, and this is the portal that the government uses for applications to be made. Once you have made an application, the ministry establishes there's a history there, a digital history, but a history that's established, and you have a file then on file with the government. It could be specifically through the ministry, one ministry. It could also be through other ministries. But this is the portal, the Transfer Payment Ontario portal, that anyone that's applying for and then is successful with a grant application, no matter which ministry, they apply through that portal, and there will be ongoing reporting and ongoing transfer of payment that happens through that portal. I've also put here COVID/19.ontario.ca. We put this on the Swim Ontario website under the COVID button, but there is a full list of individual, organization, and business supports, grants that are posted on this section of the provincial government website. And there are many links also on this website, portion of the provincial government website, to the federal government's COVID economic response plan, because a lot of the grant, the funding that organizations can apply to are linked to both the province and the federal government when it comes to COVID recovery. I've just listed a few others here: digitalmainstreet.ca for small business, investontario.ca, ontariobusinessgrants.com. These are just opportunities for you to look into. There may be something, again, that your organization can apply for. Next slide, please. Yes, okay. So applying for grants, so there's the provincial government and then there's the federal government. Why I've kept Government of Ontario and then -canada.ca. Many of the sport-specific performance funding flows from the federal government through the national sport organization, so in our case, Swimming Canada, and then through to the provinces, and then through to the members of clubs within each province. That being said, with the pandemic, the federal government has made it very, very clear, along with the provinces. They've listened, and they're trying to adapt funding supports and to collaborate and work together, and listened and are very aware that really recovery will come at the local level, local community. So the Ministry of Culture, Heritage and Sport federally, I put the link here. They have posted now on their website sport support program. So sport support programs, they will continue to have updates. Some of the funding is delivered again through Swimming Canada or the Canadian Sports Centers. Some are now going to be funded through, money is flowing through to the province, and in some cases, individual organizations will be able to apply for funding federally. This is something that, again, as I said, the federal government and the provincial governments and the local municipal governments and regional governments have collaborated and worked together to try to find the best way to get organizations locally funds more efficiently and to ensure recovery, in particular through the pandemic. A link here also I've put for the COVID economic response plan. I'm not going to go into details here. We have a lot of this posted on the Swim Ontario website. If you have, it's a lot of information to absorb. If you have specific questions on it, happy to answer those offline as well. But it is really important that your organization links to the link that I have there for the COVID economic response plan, and spend some time looking through what the federal government has with regards to supports for individuals, supports for businesses, supports for different sectors like the sports sector, and support for organizations to help individuals. Okay, next step, please. Next slide, please. Yes, this is just a list. I'm not going to go through each and every one of these, but just compiled this. And again, we have this on the Swimming Ontario website. And through the provincial budget that was announced and earlier in March, and then through the federal budget that was announced earlier in April, all orders of government are looking for ways to modify or adapt to providing again grants to try to ease the process, provide grant opportunities through these various programs for individuals, organizations, and businesses. So again, important to take the time to go through the federal COVID economic response plan. The government federally and provincially asked for patience, but they have been willing and open to how can we make these programs better, not only in the shorter term for COVID recovery, but in the longer term. Again, there's silver linings and opportunities for the federal government to work with the provincial governments and locally for some of these programs to be long lasting, not just through the pandemic. Okay, next slide, please. So further list, as you can see, there's quite a few federally and provincially opportunities for access to funds and support for organizations, businesses, and individuals. It's really important that you read through, and if you have questions, there's specific email addresses and also phone numbers associated with, and individuals or departments associated with each one of these recovery benefit programs. Okay, next slide, please. This is one program that I'm not sure, in talking with a lot of clubs, I'm not sure how many clubs are actually have applied in the past for this. I'll be right up front, I'll say that the window for 2021 for the Canada Summer Jobs Program has gone. But what I will say is, in being in discussion at a number of the roundtables with other sports, a lot of sports have taken advantage, or organizations have taken advantage of the Canada Summer Jobs Program. I'm not sure if swim clubs have, but this is an excellent opportunity. Quite a bit of funding and support flows through the federal government, through the Canada Summer Jobs Program. It is an excellent opportunity to build capacity within your organization, and it's an excellent opportunity to get young people that are already in your program and or others that are in the community involved in your program. It's a great way to also promote your organization, and there is opportunities beyond the Canada Summer Jobs Program to build further relationships with those that would be hired through the program. So what's really important to note here is, if you've already signed on to this, that's awesome, great opportunity for you. If you haven't, take the time. I encourage your organization to take the time to go through this, look at past recipients, but also to take the time to connect with, just as I said, your MPP, to connect with your MPP in your community. Because if they are aware and they know that you have applied and you're a organization, a local organization in the community that provides so many supports, volunteering, connecting people in the community, bringing economic opportunity, supporting the health and wellness through swimming, through your club for the community, organizing events, you name it. The MP should be aware of that, and aware that you are applying for the Canada Summer Jobs. This is what this program is all about. It's to support a local community and to make more organizations resilient and to ensure that they are long-lasting within the community. Okay, next slide, please.
Christy, Lila De Cruz has said that over the few years, North York Aquatic Club have had 2 students per year, and it's been a very successful program, and they found it very helpful.
Oh, so that's
just a
wonderful.
little bit of information there.
No, that's wonderful. Yeah, great. Thank you for that feedback. Okay, I've just put here also, so outside of government, there are endless numbers of literally thousands of grant opportunities out there. I've just listed a number of links. No problem. Just listed a number of links of, go the other direction.
Oh, did I go wrong way? Right. Yeah. Sorry. That the one?
Problem.
One more.
Next one, please.
There.
Right there. Perfect. So Coaches Association of Ontario, there's specific funding for coaches, funding for coach salaries. Coaches Association of Canada, I didn't list, there's quite a few different opportunities there. Parasport Ontario, Canadian Paralympic Committee, funding opportunities, Sport for Ontario, Parks and Recreation Ontario. The list really is we'll go on and on and on. What is important to note again is that, so Swim Ontario has the opportunity to apply for funding through these organizations, because the funder, so the association, for example, Coaches Association of Ontario, they may specify, okay, only the PSO can apply for this grant opportunity. Here's the deadline, here's what it needs to be. It's restricted funding, it has to go to this. Then at the same time, they have funding where only the club can apply for, or the coach themselves can apply for. And all of them are the same. All of them offer opportunities for individuals, for organizations, or for the provincial sport organization to apply. So it's a good opportunity for the clubs to look through these, take some time to look through these links, and to see if and when there's opportunity for your organization to apply. Next slide, please. Okay, this is just a list of some others. Again, the list is endless. Before we got on, before we signed on or signed you on, Anne and I were talking about Jumpstart, Canadian Tire. I don't know how many of you have applied, but right now there's quite a few opportunities for Jumpstart, whether it be individuals, individual organizations, municipalities. Jumpstart is Canada-wide through Canadian Tire, but there's many opportunities for collaboration, even between, again, between sports. Welland, they just were awarded, as an example, a multi-sport court. They're working with a number of local clubs, but also the city, and also another sport organization. Another sport business, but it's through Canadian Tire Jumpstart. So lots of opportunity through Jumpstart. Kids Sport Canada as well. Kids Sport Canada, interesting again. They are always populating and providing updates on what type of grants are available. And they have, so there's Kids Sport Canada, but then you can sign on to the provincial notification, and then within each province there are also even more specific regional notifications that you can receive. Next slide, please. Okay, other things, I'll just really quickly go through this. One thing to be aware of, I don't know how many of you are aware, there's actually, you can subscribe to get notifications about grants, Ontario.grantwatch, Canada.grantwatch, CA.grantmatch, a number of kind of grant clearinghouses in Ontario and in Canada. Of course, there's locally, as I mentioned before, there are corporate or celebrity or different long-standing legacy foundations that exist within each community. So you just want to keep that in mind when you're considering applying. Next slide, please. This just gives you a list. One thing I do want to point out, connecting, and Anne reminded me of this, it is really important, connecting with service clubs. Lions Club, Rotary, Knights of Columbus, Toastmasters, there's other service clubs. They are always, they are like, this is their mandate. They are always wanting to collaborate and connect with organizations within the community. Some have specific mandates. Again, they will fund maybe one specific program. They might fund one team. They might fund vulnerable individuals within your organization. They all have, again, they all have different requirements, but making that connection with your service club is, with your service clubs is really important if you have not already done so. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I'm just before I pass it over to Anne, who's going to take you through the 5 stages of grant writing, just a reminder that it's really important to be prepared, to do your homework, really know what you stand for when you're applying, have a team. And if I had remembered that it was May the 4th, I probably wouldn't have used the genie there. I wish my grant application would write itself. Maybe I would have had a Star Wars mem for, for grant writing. Grants do not write themselves. It does take a team, and each stage is just important as the next. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Anne, who's going to walk you through the 5 stages of grant writing.
Okay, so thanks, Christy. And this, we will not be doing it in detail. There's lots of great tips here that you can follow in a step format. But I think the message about collaboration is really important, not just collaborating within your organization, but also with the grantor, to make sure you know what it is that what will ring their bell and cause them to pause and consider your application. But also, there's that collaboration. There's also the internal collaboration. It's really important that that you have a team working on it so that you can have input, but also a team and an organization behind the grant, because things change. And you can get, if you're successful with the grant, maybe the implementer, the writer, isn't available anymore. Something changes in their life, and everybody needs to know about it, because you've now made a commitment in proposing that you are successful in the grant, and you have to follow through with it. So it's collaboration all the way through. So we're going to go through the 5 steps here. And the first one is that you really have to start early. And so obviously the one that's due tomorrow with the Trillium Foundation is not for you. I certainly was involved in looking at that grant, and we started weeks and weeks ago before we figured out that it wasn't for us. And it even took a while to figure that part out. So you need to start early, assume that it's not going to be easy, and make sure you find out about all the requirements, because you don't want to do a whole lot of work on a grant and then learn that, in fact, you were not eligible for that grant. So that's really one of the key things is to check out what all the requirements are going to be and what you're going to have to deliver on and the information that you're going to have to share. One example is, and Christy referred to it, is if you need audited financial statements and you don't have those, then your grant's not going to go anywhere. And that would be an example of where you would look for an organization that had audited financial statements, that had common interest to your organization, and that was prepared to be a partner. You doing the work, they doing the tracking of the finances if you were successful with the grant. So that's the first thing, is certainly reading the opportunity. The other piece about this is, it's a chicken and egg thing. Do you look through all those grant linkages and look for a grant and then try to make up an ask that goes with what they're offering? Or do you spend time in your organization sitting down and saying, what are the pieces? What are the different projects that would make a difference to our organization? How much would it be? What would we hope to achieve? And you map out what those are, and then you go looking for a grant program that might fit you. So you really need to do a little bit of both as you're working through it. So start off, stage 2 of the application process is to really write down what it is that you're trying to do and figure out what the right words are to describe that. And then consult with your organization, with your stakeholders. Is this something we need? Have we described it properly? Why would we do it? What are the advantages? What would we expect to be the outcomes? So, and it's really important in here that you have that you've included a very noble purpose. You know, we want more youth in the water swimming as a part of the team. The problem is in that situation is that many families have lost money, income, that they can't afford to put their kid in swimming anymore. So we would like to get funding so that we can supplement 20 of our swimmers this year. And I'm just fabricating this out, but just sort of what's the problem? Kids might not be able to afford swimming. What would be needed to help them? It would be subsidized memberships, and what would happen as an outcome for those youth, just as an example. Then you're going to have to certainly describe your organization. Again, this is about the noble purposes behind your organization. So if you don't already have these things, then it's going to take some time for you to create them, to consult on them, to make sure that you've got, that everybody buys into what is being written about your organization. Pretty good chance in many of these grant applications that you're going to have to list your purposes, list your programs, describe your board, talk about your accomplishments, talk about the organizations that you collaborate with, list how many volunteers you use in a year, all those things that that describe who you are and why a grantor should be considering you. Something important is also to remember that eventually you're going to have to move this in probably into a template, and there's probably going to be word limitations. So it's okay to use point form, but the point form has to be very well crafted. You can't just take a whole page and use a whole lot of point form that isn't organized. You can instead say, we have volunteers who work in the following areas, and then point form a whole lot of areas that they work in. But it will be important to eventually hone down your responses for your grant application. Third step is you're now into the meat of the application, and this is where you need to describe what the problem is that you're addressing, who it involves, what the funding will do to make a difference, and why you've ended up in this situation at this time. And I find anyway that it's almost good to start out by doing a chart, even if they never ask for the chart, to do kind of a work plan that says, what is it that we're trying to solve? What are the steps that we're going to take in solving it? What would the outcomes be? And what are the resources that we would use to get there? And so it's a bit of a work plan that outlines your goals and your tasks that you're going to do, your outcomes, and most importantly, how you're going to measure that you're successful. Because once you've been awarded a grant, you might think the hard part's over, but it's not. The hard part is making sure that the money delivers what you suggested it would deliver, and that you're able to outline the benefits. And the importance in doing that is you don't want to be asked for the money back if you didn't spend it where you said you were going to spend it. You want your reputation to be intact, as does the organization that's granting you the money. Wants your reputation to be intact, and they want to be able to say, we did this and this and this and this through these organizations. So taking it right to the end is really important. So you have to consider how you're going to do that right from the beginning, and they'll ask you for that information. When you write the objectives, you can read this, but using the SMART criteria is always helpful. Be specific, measurable, 20 swimmers, or this kind of a program, Make sure it's attainable, that you're not, that you're being specific about what it is you're going to do, not something we will improve the lives of. Pretty hard to say that how you did that. Instead, it should be specifics about what will come out of it. Be realistic, and you're going to have to give timeframes for it as well. Okay. Then the other part of completing the application is the project description. As I said, sometimes a chart will do this very well. Inputs, the activities, the resources, staff, volunteers. And it's really important to identify where there are in-kind contributions to a project, like volunteers, or like you already, even though you're not asking for money for computers, you're going to provide work computers for the people that are, I'm just using that as an example on this project. So it's important to identify all the resources that will be needed, and some of them will be in kind, and some of them you will need are the reason you're writing the grant application. Your plan of action in terms of how the timelines will go, and the outputs, again, what the result of your program will be. And the final part about completing the application is the evaluation. As I've said, your proposal will need to explain how you're going to track both the objectives and the subjective outcomes. It might be attendance figures, it might be programs completed, it might be something, a structure. If it's equipment, then the uses and how many young people were involved. So important to keep track of all that. And I'll go to the next one. And finally, your budget is writing down exactly how the money will be spent, why you, and make sure you include all of your expenses, because you don't want to get funding for what turns out to be part of the project and not be in a position to deliver on the promise because you haven't got, you neglected to include some other costs that you would have. One option that do look amongst your team and the people around you and look for somebody who's really good at writing. So if you have, if you've mapped out everything you want to do and all your goals and everything, turning that into 250 words here and 250 words there, and a really informative work plan there does require somebody who's really good at writing. So look for a volunteer in your group who can help you with that. Or if it's a really big grant, then you might be looking to pay somebody to help you with that. Stage 3, the application goes in. Be sure you follow all the directions for the application. Make sure that you're doing exactly, have all the pieces there, and adhere to all the due dates. There's a lot of competition out there, so there's not too much forgiveness for things that are late or incomplete. And you get the grant, yay, wonderful. It's really important. I should say that what we have here is expect that there will be some sort of announcement which will put you on the alert everybody to the fact that you got a grant. So now you've got to deliver. And I think that's really the most important thing. If you've done a good job of writing your grant, then you know exactly where you're going to start and what the next steps are when you are awarded with the grant. And following through and reporting, if it's a 6-month grant, for example, there will be deadlines that you have to, when you have to deliver reports to the body who granted you the money. If it's a year, there might be a 6-month report and a 1-year report. Don't be surprised when those come in. Sometimes the work associated with the grant makes you wonder whether it was worth applying for the grant, and you have to take that into consideration right from the beginning. There's some steps here for reporting the outcomes. I see we're just past 1 o'clock, Christy.
Yeah.
The many C's. Can you speak to that one?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I saw this on a workshop. Actually, it was a slide that was used on a workshop that I attended quite a while ago, and it was sent to me also from someone else who's attended a grant writing. It's just again, it's kind of a checklist of things to consider that basically start with C that apply to grant writing.
Words that could be used, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just thought we would add this in here. Originally, it was going to include an actual template checklist, but really, when you're looking at it, every application has now these templates, as Anne was describing, that are built right into the application form, and they're very specific, and it's they want you to follow their templates. So just put this up here for, to remember to keep in mind some of these C words when you're looking at the grant opportunity, but also writing the grant itself.
And this is the last part for the question and answer phase. If there are no questions in the chat box, but there may be somebody who wants to open up and ask a question. Just reviewing an opportunity for you to review what the steps are pre-award and post-award.
I did also include, someone had asked about the awarded grants for OTF, the Ontario Trillium Foundation. So I did include the link. So they have a grants awarded link, and they also have an open data link. And you can, if you go onto those links, you can do searches. You can search by organization that was awarded. You can search by grant type. You can get information that way, and also you can connect with organizations that have been awarded grants. Many times, with Ontario Trillium Foundation, there is an actual requirement where, because it's open data and open to the public, where the organizations that are recipients, there's an opportunity there where they can field questions. I see one question here. In your experience, do you know if many grants are awarded to those who don't have audited financial statements? Great question. It really comes down to the grantor and what their requirements are.
And I would bet it's possible through some of the service clubs, Christy, that you mentioned. Like if it's local and they know who you are, and it's like a 10 memberships or something that very crisply can be measured. That's the most likely. But if it's an organization that is accountable to a broader public, it behooves them to have more stricter requirements. Yeah.
As well, you will find that oftentimes a requirement might be, rather than audited financials, record of your AGM with minutes and showing that you have on your within your organization a board with a treasurer and or some sort of like a budget, financials that show financial projections and budget for the year. So not necessarily a requirement. It all depends on, it really depends on the grantor.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Well, Christy, thanks very much. You pulled that together, and
thank you. And
yeah,
thank you for everyone that attended. Again, we will be, it is a lot of information to absorb. I do say, I encourage you to take the time to to go on to the links, especially right now, the Ontario Trillium Foundation, and also the ministry. And if you have any questions, you can always send them to us at SOMA Ontario, and we will be posting everything.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
thank you very
I'm
much,
going
everyone.
to stop the recording and say goodbye to everybody.
Thanks, everybody.